Hi everyone, and welcome to Con Edison's Family Science Night in the Greenbelt. These programs are made possible by generous donations from Con Edison, which allows us to create these experiments for you and also gives you the opportunity to do these programs at home. If you'd like more information on the Greenbelt or other Family Science Night activities, please go to sigreenbelt.org. For today's program, we are going to be experimenting with the effects of volume, temperature, and pressure on gases. So there are three laws of gases. One is Boyle's law, and that discusses the relationship between pressure and volume. All right, as pressure goes up, volume goes down because pressure is pushing onto the molecules, whether they're water molecules or air molecules or other molecules. When pressure pushes down, it creates a smaller space. As pressure goes down, the volume goes up. So as pressure kind of releases, those molecules can spread out more and take up more space. So that's Boyle's law, and Boyle was an Irish chemist that lived in the 1600s. The second law is Charles's law, and Charles was Jacques Charles, who was also a chemist, but he lived in France in the 1700s, and he spoke more about the effects of temperature on pressure. So as temperature goes up, pressure goes up. As you may or may not know, especially with air pressure, when air molecules get heated, they tend to rise or spread out, therefore increasing pressure. So if you had a small space and a high temperature, those molecules would be pushing really hard against the sides of whatever that container is, and the pressure would go up. The third law I want to talk about is called Avogadro's law, not to be confused with avocado, the things that we eat in our salad. It's Avogadro, who was an Italian chemist who lived in the 1800s, I believe. And what he discovered was that if your volume and your pressure and your temperature are all constant or stays the same, that the number of particles, regardless of what kind of gas it is, will always be the same number. So if I have this container at one temperature and one pressure filled with oxygen, it's going to have the exact same number of particles as if this was filled with helium or carbon dioxide or anything else. So pretty cool. You guys can research those laws if you want to find out a little bit more right on Google. But now we're going to go to our experiments. For our first experiment, we are going to need a glass. We're going to need some water and a piece of cardboard. This came from a carton, so maybe like a cereal box would be good, or a very thick piece of cardstock would work nicely for this. Now, what should happen in this experiment, if we do it right and it works the way it's supposed to, is I will fill up the water into the glass. We're going to put the cardboard on top and flip it over. Now, when we do this experiment, I want you guys to observe some of the water is going to come out. So as it's coming out, the reason it's coming out is because gravity is pulling on it. But as the water actually drains out of here, it's going to decrease the air pressure inside the glass, because the number of particles inside this glass of air, right, is not going to change, but the space is going to change. So you'll have the same amount of particles of air inside the glass, but more space for them to spread out, which is going to lower the pressure. When it lowers the pressure inside the glass, the pressure outside the glass is going to be pushing up onto the cardboard, and hopefully that'll stick. Now, where did the pressure come from outside? Well, every day that we walk around, we have something called atmospheric pressure pushing on us. And if we are at sea level, not up in the mountains or under the water, we have 14.7 pounds of pressure pushing on our body and everything else around us at all times. So we're used to it, we don't notice it, but when we do this experiment, you'll be able to see it in action. So let's try the experiment. So you want to fill this up pretty high. You don't need such a big glass. Whatever glass you want to use will work. I have a basin here because I know some of that water is going to spill out, and if this experiment fails, we're gonna have a big mess. You can do this over a sink or over a tub like I'm doing, however you like. Or you could do it outside. So, let's see. Now you can see, right, as I said, we have some of that water spilling out because gravity is pulling down on it. And even as I'm kind of holding this, I can feel the pressure kind of sucking up that cardboard. So when I let go, let's see what happens. I hope it works. Ta-da. So this worked. Now as soon as it's kind of creating a suction, oops, and it can only last for so long because eventually, as soon as it cracks even the smallest bit, it's gonna let that air inside and it's gonna equalize the pressure on the inside and the outside. As you see, that just happened. So you can try this at home. You can try it with different size glasses, see if it works any differently, any better, any worse. You can try with paper or maybe a thicker cardboard, see if you can get a thicker cardboard to stick. Any kind of experimentation you want to do. So on to our next experiment. So for this experiment, we're actually going to build our own barometer. What a barometer does is tells you if it's going to be nice weather or maybe cloudy, rainy weather based on the pressure in the air. So when we hear the weatherman say things like there's a cold front or a warm front coming through, they also, because of the temperature changes, have different pressures. And when those two fronts collide, that's what gives us wind. The more of the difference in pressure and temperature, the bigger the winds, maybe the worse of the storms. So when it's nice out, or when it's about to be nice out, the pressure actually goes higher in the air, in the atmosphere. And when it's cold and rainy, the pressure goes down a bit. So what we're going to do is make our own little barometer here, and then we can observe it throughout maybe the week or the month and see if you can predict the weather. For this, we're going to need some tape, rubber bands, a balloon, and don't stretch this balloon out, and don't use a balloon that has already been blown up. It won't be rubbery enough. It'll be too stretched out to use for this. Piece of cardstock or any kind of paper really, but cardstock is good because you can stand it up. A jar with straight edges, so you don't want to use a soda bottle for this that has a narrow mouth. You want something that's sort of straight. A straw and scissors. So the first thing we're going to do is take our balloon and we're going to cut off this part. All right. Let's hope these scissors work. Not going to work. So you also need some really good scissors. There we go. So you want it to look something like this. And you're going to take this and stretch it over the top of your jar. So you have like almost a little drum right here. You want to make sure the pressure inside the jar is not going to leak out through the balloon. So we're going to secure it with a rubber band. If you had some silicone glue or something else that you really wanted to make sure that seal was tight, you could use that as well, but I don't think it's necessary. But you want to make sure that's sealed all the way around. And with the mason jar, you do have this little lip, so I think you get a really nice seal. Then you're going to take your straw. Don't use a bendy straw, you want a straight straw for this. And you're going to make a little point at the end. And this is your pointer. Again, not the best scissors, but you can see we have a little point, and that's going to point you in the direction of where you want to look to see if it's going to be sunny out or if it's going to be rainy out. Then all you need is a little piece of tape, and you're going to tape that right to the top of the balloon. All right, we have our barometer all set up, and now we're going to show you how to use it. What I did here is I took my cardstock and I folded it in 3, just like that. That way, when I opened it up, it'll stand up straight. A little while ago, I did my designs here for high pressure and sunny, and low pressure and rainy. So I like to put the little designs there because sometimes I forget if high pressure means it's going to be nice out or if it means it's going to be bad out. So this helps to remind me. I also took a marking right in the middle where my pointer is. So as the days go by and the pressure inside this jar changes, it's going to move this straw up or down. So when it's high pressure and it's maybe in the next day going to be sunny, it's actually pushing on all those particles inside the jar. And as it's pushing on it, it's decreasing the volume. So this balloon is going to get pulled down and this should go up. It may not go up that high. I'm pushing on it pretty hard, but just look for slight differences. And then when it's low pressure, all those particles will push out and it's going to push up onto that balloon and push this kind of up like that. So that'll go down. Again, it might not move as much as what I'm doing here, but if you have your mark pretty centered where your straw is, you might be able to see the differences. And again, every day, just write it down if it's moving high, if it's moving low, and then check with the weather report and see if you got it right. If this doesn't move at all, you might need to tighten your seal and start over again. For this experiment, I'm going to see if I can get that egg into this jar without using my hands or any other objects to push it into the jar. So let's see if I can do that. But first, think about what you know about pressure, especially air pressure and volume and temperature, and try and figure it out while I'm doing this, how it's going to work. So before I start anything, we are going to be using fire, so your parents must be with you when you do this experiment. And if you have any eye protection, that would be great. So goggles or these cool glasses that I think I got at Home Depot are perfect. So what we're going to do first, let me give you some materials. We need hard-boiled eggs. I have 6 here just in case my first egg does not work. If it does work, the rest of these will go to our turtles for lunch tomorrow. I have some paper. So this is scrap paper. These are the notes that I made for our family science tonight that I don't need anymore. And I have this bottle. So you need a bottle that is wide enough to hold the egg, but not so wide, a little slimy, not so wide that the egg goes right into it. The education staff here had enjoyed some frappuccinos earlier today, and this bottle seems to work pretty good. And also make sure it's a glass bottle. Kind of hard to find glass bottles, but you don't want to use plastic for this because it might melt and you don't want that to happen. I also have a little water here. To help this experiment, you could kind of wet the inside of the jar if it's not already wet, just to help that egg get in there. So what we're gonna do is try to make the pressure in this bottle less than the pressure outside of the bottle and see if it can push the egg into the bottle. And the way we're going to do that is to heat up the air inside of here. When it heats up, that air is going to push out. When it pushes out, actually take a look at the egg and see if it wobbles a little, because that air is trying to get out, the volume is expanding, and it might actually move around the egg and wobble it a little bit. Might even make a little bit of noise. Then when the paper and the fire goes out and the temperature cools down, that air pressure is going to be stronger outside of the bottle than in, and it's going to suck that egg into the bottle, or at least we hope that's what's going to happen. So let's try it out. I'm going to move away anything that could potentially catch fire. And again, have to have your parents around for this because you are using fire. That happened very, very quickly. So our air pressure, and I think the egg is a little bit small, so it worked really well. So that worked really fast, slid it right in. As you saw before, it wasn't going in on its own, it just sat on top of there. And now we have an egg in a bottle. How can we get it out? Besides chopping it up with a fork or a knife inside there and pulling it out, we could, let's see, I'm going to take this out, make sure this is out. I'm going to put it in water to make sure I don't set anything on fire. And try and figure out how I'm going to get this egg out of here. So if we decrease the pressure inside the bottle and increase the pressure outside the bottle to get it in, we need to increase the pressure inside the bottle and, well, decrease the pressure outside the bottle. So what you can do, if you're brave and you don't mind getting maybe some ashes on your lips, is blow air into the bottle so you have a lot more air particles inside than outside. And that air is going to push this egg out. So let's see if it works. Did it work? No, almost. All right, it's not working. It almost came out, as you can see, but it's still stuck in there. And another thing you can do, this part of the experiment didn't work. Nope, not working. But what you could also do is try and heat up the air inside this bottle by putting it over steaming water and heating up the air, and that might pop it out as well. I'll try that in a little bit, but as you can see now it's kind of stuck in there. It didn't come all the way out, but if you want to keep trying, you can. Let me see, I'll try one more time. Oh, it's really stuck in there though. Oh, that's interesting. The air pressure is so hard in there, I can't get it back in. It's a little gross. So you might not want to do it this way. So I can't get it out, but you guys can experiment with that. Again, as I said, you can try it out over hot steam and see if you can get that out of the bottle. For our last experiment, we are going to crush this can without crushing it with our hands or our feet or our head. Definitely don't crush it on your head. We're going to do it with pressure and temperature. So the first thing I want to tell you is what you need. You need some empty cans, aluminum cans, not plastic or anything else. You need water and a little spoon. You need very cold water. This has a few ice cubes still left. It's nice and cold. And you need a heat source. As you can see, my heat source is pretty hot. So this is an experiment you must do with some parental guidance. Don't do this on your own. Also, you either need some heat-proof gloves or some very, very good kitchen tongs that can hold this securely. Don't get kitchen tongs where this slides out because this is going to be hot. So if you go to touch it with kitchen tongs and it flies out of those tongs, that's not safe. So maybe rubberized tongs or something that's really gonna hold this securely that you can use when this is hot. So the first thing I'm going to do is put a little water in there, not too much, just enough. And what we're going to do is actually boil this water inside the can. So as that boils, anybody who's ever boiled water has seen that steam evaporates out and those molecules are moving out and they're spreading out. So as this boils, those molecules are pushing against the can. They're pushing their way out. They're trying to spread as far apart as they can. Once that boils and we see the steam start coming out, we're going to take it pretty quickly, flip it over into the ice cold water. So once it hits that ice cold water, all of those really hot molecules that are pushing away are going to condense and actually suck in. And as it sucks it in, the pressure outside is going to collapse that can. So let's see if this happens. Let's see if it works. This took me quite some time to get right, so don't be discouraged if you don't get it right the first time. You can hear the water starting to boil. And now watch for some poofs of steam coming out. So you guys can see right here, there's steam coming out of there. I'm gonna let it sit for about 30 seconds. Okay, so I would say between 15 and 30 seconds. And now I'm going to see if I can collapse this can. Careful, because there might still be some hot water inside there. So that collapsed it pretty good. It's not hot anymore. I think that actually did a better job than if I tried with my own hands, so. So again, parental supervision with this, because this can got really hot. These are heat-proof gloves, and I can still feel the heat and the temperature through them. Not enough to burn me, but make sure you have really good gloves or really good tongs. And I also have eye protection on, which I didn't mention before, but it's a good idea just in case any of that hot water splashes up on you. All right, and you can try this over and over again. It's kind of a fun experiment, and enjoy. Thanks for joining us for this virtual edition of Con Edison's Family Science Night here in the Greenbelt. For more information about this program or programs like it, you can check us out at sigreenbelt.org. If you have any cool videos you want to share with us, you can email those to us at sigreenbelteducation@gmail.com. And don't forget to check us out on our social media, Facebook sites, Instagram, and YouTube channel.